Namo Buddhaya, Teruvan Saranai. I would like to dedicate the merits from this Dhammadana to my grandfather who passed away last night. He provided a great example for me to live by, both as a layman and now as a monk in my spiritual journey. What I most remember about him is his absolute honesty. Such a straightforward person who never criticized anyone, never started any wildfires between people, who was a wise and kind, true gentleman, held the traditional values of my people without even a hint of hypocrisy. A truly great example for a young man to grow up around. So, all the merits from this Dhammadana may go to him if he needs it, which I doubt. So, last week we did the second reading of the Sabbasava sutta. To remind you again, asava means the taints or the influxes. That is the karma ashrava, the taint of sensual desire, the bhava ashrava, taint of clinging to becoming, and avijja ashrava, avijja asava, the taint of ignorance, which is the mastermind behind all the others, all our woe and suffering in this world. So we talked last week about how an unwise person develops, does not develop wise attention and pays attention in such a way that these taints increase in their power by clinging and identifying to a self, even in the most subtle manner. In any capacity, when there is a self and clinging to it, suffering arises. So today we are going to go on and talk about how a noble disciple, through wise attention, can be free of these taints. So we'll pay homage to the Lord Buddha before we start. Namo dassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo dassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo dassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So, to all the taints, Sabbasava Sutta, verse 9. Bhikkhus, a well-taught noble disciple who has regard for noble ones and is skilled and disciplined in their Dhamma, who has regard for true men and is skilled and disciplined in their Dhamma, understands what things are fit for attention and what things are unfit for attention. Since that is so, he does not attend to those things unfit for attention and attends to those things fit for attention. So this is how one who has regard for the Dhamma, for the Lord Buddha and noble ones will start on the path or stays on the path by regarding things wisely, by applying what I described last week, yoniso manasikara, or wise attention, to see the root of things, to see things clearly, which is what we do with meditation, which is what we do with studying the Dhamma and listening to the Dhamma as well, but mostly the most powerful method being meditation. And not just on the seat, but in our everyday lives, regarding things wisely, trying to see through the net of deception that we have weaved, to see the things as they really are. What are things unfit for attention that he does not attend to? They are things such that when he attends to them, the unarisen taint of sensual desire arises in him, and the arisen taint of ignorance increases. These are things unfit for attention that he does not attend to. So we can see the first step is not to attend to unwise things. So the first step, before we try and cultivate the wise attention, we need to stop with the unwise attention, which can be quite a challenge because that's what we were programmed, sort of conditioned into doing for so long. Um, so that's the first thing we need to do. These and what are the things fit for attention that he attends to? So, and then we try to apply wise attention. They are things such that when he attends to them, the unarisen taint of sensual desire does not arise in him, and the arisen taint of ignorance is abandoned. So there's a lot of repetition in the suttas. So these are a bit abridged. Usually it says the unarisen taint of sensual desire does not arise in him, and we repeat what is said in verse 6. So about increasing, about not arising again, but is abridged here. These are the things fit for attention that he attends to. By not attending to things unfit for attention, and by attending to things fit for attention, unarisen taints do not arise in him, and arisen taints are abandoned. So this is quite an important point as well. His unarisen taints do not arise in him. So that means one who is noble, one who has abandoned the taints, through wise attention can also stop this from arising again. And maybe you've noticed from your meditation that if there is unwholesome thoughts, let's say ones that are hateful or angry, once we recognize them, they get abandoned because we see the truth of what they really are. However, they do pop up again, almost without us wanting them. They would just jump in, like so and so did this thought would come in, and there would be hatred involved, and it's almost involuntary. uh, Kind of is, but it is almost involuntary. But even these sort of taints will not arise if we keep practicing our meditation. If we keep applying yoniso manasikara, these these taints, they have a tendency to weaken so much that they become less frequent in our mind. So one who meditates a lot, one who practices the Dhamma a lot, if you don't use the word meditation, even if you practice the Dhamma a lot in Sila, Samadhi and Panya, even outside the cushion, there is a tendency for evil thoughts, evil actions, and evil speech to weaken, to be less frequent in our minds. We are confronted by them a lot less, and they get replaced by feelings of loving kindness and compassion and equanimity. This is how we purify our minds. This is how we improve in the Dhamma. He attends wisely. This is suffering. He attends wisely. This is the origin of suffering. He attends wisely. This is the cessation of suffering. He attends wisely. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. So that's the Four Noble Truths. Dukkha Arya Satya, that is the truth of suffering, the truth of dukkha, the Dukkha Samudaya Satya, which is the origin, knowing the origin, and knowing the cessation, which is Dukkha Nirodha Arya Satya. And this is the way leading to the to the cessation of suffering. That's the dukkha nirodhagamini patipada, Ariya Satya. That's the Eightfold Noble Path. So one, this is when we attend wisely to the Four Noble Truths. When we apply the Four Noble Truths to our everyday experiences, and we try to see, we see them through the light of the Four Noble Truths. When he attends wisely in this way, three fetters are abandoned in him: personality weave, doubt, and adherence to rules and observances. These are called the taints that should be abandoned by seeing. So here, the description now is of a sotapanna, or a stream enterer in English. That is the first stage of enlightenment. It is one who has got rid of these three fetters called personality weave. In Pali, that's called sakya ditti, and that is an identification with the five aggregates. When we try to invent a self based on these things, and this is which is the root of suffering. And doubt, or vichikiccha in Pali. Vichikiccha, or doubt, is sort of a doubt in the Dhamma, a doubt in the power of the four, no, like not the power, the doubt that the Eightfold Noble Path will lead to the cessation of suffering, and doubt in the Four Noble Truths, and doubt in paticca samuppada, or dependent origination. See, when we shed personality doubt, personality view, sorry, or sakya ditti, we stop clinging to the five aggregates, because we see that they arise out of conditions. They arise out of this formula, this algorithm of interrelated things called, which is described in the paticca samuppada, that they arise out of conditions and they fade away out of conditions. And we see that the clinging to an idea of self is ignorant. And it brings us suffering. And when we shed that, we also shed the sort of the doubt we have on dependent origination. It's a lot more than that as well. It's like you almost get a glimpse at you do get a glimpse at nibbana, because here, as it's described, the asavas are abandoned, and maybe not forever, but it's like one who has abandoned by seeing has entered the land of nibbana, metaphorically speaking, has experienced nibbana and has come back, and this has changed such a person forever. That's the most revolutionary thing that may happen in the life of a Dhamma practitioner. This is now the point of no return. Um, Woeful states, being born in woeful states, is now no longer a possibility. Now Nibbana is a sure thing, at least within 7 lifetimes. And and so they lose doubt, because doubt can be such a crippling thing. It can destroy our confidence in our practice. It can cause us to second guess ourselves. It can cause a lot of disturbance in our meditation. It can, even when we are doing something good, we start thinking unwholesome things like, is there a point in me doing this good thing? Am I going to get some returns from this? And thinking in this way, it can really delibitate. It can really disable our potential. And this disability is shed. And the last one, adherence to rules and observances, or sila bhatta paramasa, is a very interesting one, and quite a hard one, because rules and observances is also translated as rites and rituals, because rituals are such a big part of everything now. But thinking that doing rituals will bring us to liberation, bring us to nibbana, is a fetter. It's something that holds us down, because the Buddha never taught that you have to do rituals in order to free yourself. Um, Rituals such as sacrifices, such as there's a lot of these rituals in well, not sacrifices, but there's a lot of rituals nowadays in Buddhism as well. Unfortunately, because it's just a cultural affectation that has that has sort of entered and influenced Buddhism over so long, such a long time, from Hinduism, from animism, and I think even Christianity. So many rituals now are part and parcel of Buddhism, but this is not the Dhamma. This is just a cultural thing. It is a, I mean, it gives people comfort, and people like rituals because meditation is, is too much work. So rituals are a bit easier to do. So people like doing it, but we need to know that this is not the Dhamma. Practicing the Dhamma does not involve practicing rituals, but it can be if we attend to it wisely. So if we look at it as, like I said, as a tool, it makes people happy. So it's nice to make people happy. And if it's not going to hurt anyone, it's okay. Sort of like that. And even if you're a part of a ritual, you can treat it like a meditation, practicing equanimity. And if you are chanting or something, focus on the words, what they mean, and the way the body moves or the mouth moves. It's a good object of meditation as well. um, and rules, so even clinging to sila can be a fetter. This does not mean that we should not practice sila, we should not practice precepts, because the precepts are very important to discipline our minds, to weaken the kilesas. But it becomes a fetter if we think it is enough for liberation. It's enough for destroying the kilesas. It is it is not. It's not enough. We need to use sati and samadhi and prajna, most importantly panya, wisdom, because the sila by itself only weakens the kilesas. And if you use panya properly, we can use it to actually get rid of the kilesas, of the defilements, of the greed, hatred, and delusion. So we need to see the sila, the precepts, whether it be the 5 precepts of a layperson or the 272 of a monk and the 1,000 other minor ones, or the 311 of a bhikkhuni. All these precepts, they serve a function which is very important, which is to weaken the kilesas, but not to not to destroy them. And also, if we try to use them in an unwholesome way, if we are using the sila in a way that increases unskillful qualities, such as ego, thinking I am better than people who don't keep the sila, or I am terrible compared to these people who keep so many sealers, like I'm so bad for not keeping the sealers, or thinking I'm equal to someone who I can be equal to this person that keep the sealers. And in this way, constructing a self, a narrative of a self, and clinging to the sealer in this way is unwholesome, and that can be a fetter, but not following them. Following them is a very good idea because it makes us very disciplined. um, and it's sort of, and none of the precepts are a obstacle to nibbana. None of them. They all aid us in the guide, but we need to treat them as a tool, not the end itself, but the means to an end. So that's what's meant by sila bhatta paramas, which is confused a lot. So these are called the taints that should be abandoned by seeing. So now we are going on to the second method of abandoning the asavas. Taints to be abandoned by restraining. So restraining here means our sila, basically, our discipline. So when we start off in the path, before we can actually do the first method, which is abandoning by seeing, which requires a lot of work and a lot of wisdom, we need to start by restraining, because this is what I mentioned before. It is the tool to be used. Restraining is sort of the easiest thing to start with, because to be able to see, like, let's say, for example, greedy thoughts or angry thoughts, through our meditation or through our practice, to be able to see how these thoughts appear and they disappear based on conditions, requires a very subtle state of mind, and requires a lot of concentration and mindfulness, which in the beginning of a journey is quite hard to cultivate or out of nowhere. We cannot gain the mindfulness of a meditator who has meditated for a long time just like that. So we need to start off by restraining, which can be quite difficult, but the rewards of this come quite soon, quite quickly. So, what are the taints, bhikkhus, that should be abandoned by restraining? So, I look at the footnotes here. If abandonment of the taints is understood in the strict sense as their ultimate destruction, then only two of the seven methods mentioned in the sutta affect their abandonment: seeing and development, which between them comprise the four supramundane paths. The other five methods cannot directly accomplish the destruction of the taints, but they can keep them under control during the preparatory stages of practice, and thereby facilitate the eventual eradication by the supramundane paths. So that's what was described before. During the preparatory stages, we need to use restraint, and that's what we do with the five precepts or the eight precepts or the patimokkha of us monks. Here, a bhikkhu, reflecting wisely, abides with the eye faculty restrained, while taints, vexation, and fever might arise in one who abides with the eye faculty unrestrained. There are no taints, vexations, or fever in one who abides with the eye faculty restrained. So, this is a description of how we restrain the senses. So, that's Indriya Samvara, called Indriya Samvara. Is sort of, instead of looking at something straight away when I want to look at it, just wait a second, just relax, chill out. Do I really need to look at it? And then mindfully observe something. And in this way, we can stop unwholesome thoughts from arising. So it sort of cultivates, it sort of prepares the land for cultivation of samadhi, of concentration, and the cultivation of mindfulness, and the cultivation of wisdom. Um, to go on, I'll read the footnote 44. The primary factor responsible for exercising this restraint over the sense faculties is mindfulness. So mindfulness is the primary factor to use this restraint. And the more we use mindfulness to restrain the senses, the more the power of mindfulness increases. A fuller formula for sense restraint is given in many other suttas. Example 27, I guess that's the Indriya Samvara Sutta, and analyzed in detail at Visuddhimagga. Explains fever parilaha in the above passage as the fever of defilements and their karmic results. Okay, so that's the fever that we get when we don't restrain our eyes or our senses, and the karmic results of it. I think it's quite a apt description of what happens when we don't when we just jump around a lot from thing to thing with our eyes, with our ears, with our taste, and even with our mind. Um, for me, the most relatable thing about this is the when we talk about the faculty of the mind. I've always had a very hyperactive mind that's just always jumping from one thing to another. I'm hyperactive physically as well. So just cannot stay still. I cannot restrain the faculty of the body. I just want to keep jumping about somewhere, doing something and thinking about. I can never sit still and think about one thing or concentrate. It's always jumping here and there and here and there, and it gives me a huge headache sometimes, because I never stay still. So the rest of the sutta goes through all the other faculties as well, and we do not have time to go through them all today because I've only got 5 minutes left. So I will stop the reading from here and leave you to think about what it means to restrain the senses. And this is a very important part of our practice. It's restraint does not mean repression. It means wisely applying yourself. It's not about hating yourself or looking at things that would arise defilements. It means wait in a moment, just chill out and consider carefully about what's going on, and apply your senses in a way that is skillful. And this is something that increases with practice. And for a Dhamma practitioner, this is the most important step when we begin our practice. And all through, to keep us on the path, we have to practice Indriya Samvara. And it really does bring a lot of joy, because you will notice as time goes on that even the slightest thing can amuse you. It's like, for example, how monks practice this Indriya Samvata. One of the ways is that we do not watch entertainment. So we don't watch movies or television shows or things like that, or soap operas and all that. So what happens then is that it's almost like the mind becomes a lot more receptive to things we see. So we no longer need to watch an action movie, for example, to be entertained. You could do it by just watching a bee fly around or a leaf waving in the wind. It's so much more joyful and entertaining than anything I watched on the screen, for example. It's like the mind. It's almost like it goes down to this simple, basic state, um, that is so receptive and that absorbs information so well. Like being able to read something and quickly absorb it, hear something and quickly understand what the person is saying, or being able to look at something and understand a lot of things about it. Both in the spiritual sense and the practical sense, and in all these things, the mind becomes so, becomes like a sponge. It's really amazing, the capacity of a mind that is restrained. So anyway, I hope you all enjoy practicing and enjoying the fruits of Indriya Sangvara. Until our next reading session, sadhu. Thank you very much for listening. Bye bye.